The following story is a translated and adapted conversation, recounting supernatural experiences from around the world. This content is intended for entertainment purposes only. Listen with an open mind and enjoy the thrill of the unknown. The content in this video is purely for entertainment. Viewer discretion is advised. If you are easily frightened, be prepared some stories might just send chills down your spine. If you're ready, turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and immerse yourself in the world of the unexplained.
In the winter of 1984, the Karelian Isthmus, a desolate stretch of bogs and forests along the Russia-Finland border, was a frozen scar of Cold War tension. It's a battleground of the 1939-1940 Winter War where Soviet and Finnish forces clashed in blood and snow. The isthmus bore the weight of unburied dead, its marshes whispering of lost soldiers. The Soviet border troops, tasked with patrolling this tense frontier, faced not only Finnish vigilance but also the region's grim legends. Locals, Russian villagers, and Karelian fishermen spoke of a Red Army soldier, gutted by Finnish shrapnel in 1940, wandering the fog, his cough summoning comrades to drag the living into the ice. Into this frozen nightmare stepped conscript Alexei Volkov, a 19-year-old Muscovite serving his mandatory term in the Soviet border troops, a nervous city boy. Alexei was ill-suited for the isthmus's bleak isolation, his dreams of university crushed by conscription. Assigned to a solo patrol during a routine border exercise, Alexei was about to confront a past that refused to rest. Alexei's journey to the Karelian Isthmus was a reluctant plunge into duty. Drafted from Moscow's crowded apartments, he boarded a military train in December 1983, the frost-rimed windows framing the endless taiga. The Vyborg outpost, a cluster of concrete barracks and watchtowers near the Finnish border, was his new home, its border troops tasked with patrolling the isthmus to deter defectors and monitor NATO-aligned Finland. Alexei's assignment was a night patrol, trek a 15-kilometer loop through the marshes, check observation posts, and report suspicious activity. The mission filled him with dread. His urban upbringing left him unprepared for the wilderness, his only solace a small Orthodox icon from his mother. His briefing in a drafty command room was led by Captain Viktor Kuznetsov, a stern Leningrad native. He outlined the route, followed the Sestra River's frozen banks, inspect derelict bunkers, avoid civilian poachers, and forget the ghost stories. He snapped, but his eyes lingered on the map, where a red X marked a ruined Winter War bunker. Alexei nodded, his AK-47 slung, his greatcoat heavy with gear, flashlight, radio, knife. Conscripts' whispers tales of a gutted soldier, his cough-luring wanderers stirred panic. But Alexei's Soviet loyalty, drilled through propaganda, dismissed them as peasant nonsense. That first day, Alexei settled into the outpost, his boots crunching on ice, his breath fogging in the sub-zero air. The isthmus, with its frozen bogs and skeletal pines, felt alive, its silence a challenge he met with muttered prayers. His mother's stories of domovoi and restless souls crept into his mind. A warning he dismissed as nerves. His duty to the motherland, however forced, anchored him. But the marsh's isolation gnawed, its fog too thick, its cold too personal. First week was a grind of cold and fear. Alexei patrolled with senior conscript Yuri Petrov, brash Siberian who mocked his city boy jitters. They skied the isthmus's trails, their AK-47 slung, their flashlights sweeping bogs and pines. The Sestra River, a ribbon of ice, was their guide, its surface cracking underfoot, its banks a maze of reeds and snow. They checked bunkers, scribbling relics of the Winter War, their walls scarred by shrapnel, finding no threats, only the wind's howl and the occasional fox track. The ruined bunker, a concrete hulk half sunk in the marsh, was their checkpoint, its air heavy with rot. Off duty, Alexei visited a village canteen near Vyborg, the locals' faces weathered, their stories darker. Overkvist, an old fisherman, spoke of the soldier, a Red Army private gutted by Finnish artillery in 1940, left to freeze, his ghost coughing in the fog. He moans, Tavarish, stay, the fisherman said, his eyes distant, wants company in the ice. Alexei noted the tale in his journal, his rational mind skeptical, but his stomach twisted. The fisherman's words echoing his mother's warnings of souls bound to war. The canteen's radio played a crackling Soviet march, its notes hollow against the isthmus's pulse. By the second week, Alexei was assigned a solo patrol. A test of his reliability, Yuri, on rest, left him with a smirk. "Don't cough back, city boy," the other conscript's Kuznetsov. A quiet private named Irina and a cocky corporal named Dmitri watched him go, their banter laced with unease. Alexei's route took him deeper into the marsh, the Sestra's Isis path, the fog a wall of white. The air was colder, the winter's bite lethal, but the isthmus felt alive, its silence a predator waiting to strike. On the night of January 15, 1984, a dense fog rolled in from the Baltic, blanketing the isthmus. Pines barely visible, Alexei's patrol began at 11 p.m., his skis gliding over the Sestra's ice, his AK-47 heavy, his flashlight cutting through the mist. The air was sub-zero, the scent of frost and peat thick, the silence oppressive, broken only by the ice's crack and the distant bark of a dog. His radio crackled with static. Kuznetsov's voice faint. "Volkov, Post 3, report status," he responded, his voice trembling, but the static grew, laced with a faint, wet cough not from the outpost, not from anyone alive. Alexei pushed on, his greatcoat crusted with snow, his goggles fogging, the ruined bunker. His checkpoint loomed ahead, its concrete shrouded, its entrance a black maw. The fog thickened, the wind a low moan, carrying a chill that pierced his gear. His icon tucked in his pocket felt heavy, almost warm, as if warning him. Fisherman's tail gnawed at him, the soldier gutted, his cough a lure, just a cold. He muttered, but the ice's crack deepened like bones snapping, deliberate and alive. He heard it, then a wet, guttural cough cutting through the fog, rhythmic like a dying man's rasp. His pulse quickened, his flashlight sweeping the marsh, its beam swallowed by the mist. The cough grew louder, a hacking wail, vibrating through the ice, shaking his skis. His radio roared with static, now clear with a rasping voice. "Tavarish, stay, not Kuznetsov, not his squad." Alexei called out, "This is border troops, identify yourself." His voice was lost in the fog, but the cough intensified, a relentless rasp that pressed against his skull. Alexei stopped, his AK-47 raised, his flashlight trembling. The fog darkened, the marsh a white void, the Sestra's ice groaning underfoot. The cough became a scream, each hack a stab in his ears, the ground quaking, fog swirling like a vortex. Through the mist, a figure emerged, tall, gaunt, in a tattered red army coat, its fabric frozen, its edges fraying like ice. The figure's stomach was a gaping wound, glistening with frost-bitten flesh, entrails dangling, dragging a bayonet that scraped the ice, its blade glinting with a blue sheen. Alexei's breath caught, his icon burning through his pocket, his voice a whisper, "Gospodi Pomalu." The soldier's face was frost-bitten, its skin black and cracked, its eyes voids dripping with ice, its mouth gaping in a silent scream. A low, guttural moan rose not from a mouth, but from the air itself, vibrating through the marsh. Moaning, "Tavarish, stay." Shadows crawled from the ice comrades, their faces blackened by frost, their eyes voids, their uniforms tattered, crawling on frost-bitten limbs. They moaned, "Stay, join us," their voices a grinding dirge, accusing, "You forgot us." The fog thickened, forming shapes, hands, faces, their voids hollow, their mouths open in silent screams. Alexei's legs trembled, his AK-47 useless, its barrel trembling, the ice cracked, the fog pulling at his skis like hands, the marsh's surface rippling as if alive, cold, frost-bitten hands skeletal, dripping with ice clawed at his boots, their touch like frozen steel, tugging him toward the bunker. His radio screamed, the static now a finished curse perkle cool, drowning his squad's calls, his mind flooded with visions, winter war trenches, finished knives. Soviet soldiers gutted in snow, their screens swallowed by fog. The visions weren't his, but they felt real, as if the isthmus was forcing him to see its pain. He felt a jolt, as if his soul was being peeled open, his shame for hating conscription, his fear of dying for a cause he didn't choose, his own warmth while the dead froze. The soldier glided closer, its bayonet inches from his face, its void searing into his soul, demanding. Comrades crawled, their bayonets raised, their dirge a knife in his skull. Alexei's scream caught in his throat, his body paralyzed by a terror he'd never known, not in Moscow's roughest streets, not in training, not anywhere. Alexei's survival instinct snapped him free, a flicker of panic breaking the spell. He fired his AK-47 short bursts, the muzzle flash blinding, the bullets vanishing into the fog. Leaving no mark on the soldier, the figure didn't falter, its scream unrelenting. The hands tightening, their grip searing his skin, his radio screamed, "Tavarish, stay." Drowning his cries for help, he ripped off his skis, stumbling through the snow, and ran. The fog chasing him, the cuffs rasp piercing his ears. He sprinted toward the Sestra, the pines a black wall, the ice's crack chasing him. The wind howling like a banshee, the dirge followed, a relentless moan. Comrades crawled closing in, the fog's hands clawing at his coat. He glanced back, his heart stopping. The soldier stood on the ice, its wound glistening, its bayonet raised, the comrade's void staring through the fog. The fog swirled, hands frosting his coat. Leaving streaks of ice, Alexei prayed aloud, Spasi Menya, his Russian Ra. But the scream drowned his words, its Finnish curse is a curse. The watchtower's light, faint through the fog, signaled his squad's position. Yuri's voice crackled through the radio, faint but sharp. "Volkov, where are you?" The light jolted Alexei, and he ran toward it, the pines fading, the marsh a black sea. The cough faltered, the hands retreating, but the scream lingered, a piercing echo. He reached the tower, collapsing in the snow, his AK-47 clattering, his breath ragged. Yuri, Irina, and Dmitri leapt from a truck, their faces pale, their rifles raised, scanning the fog. Dawn broke over the isthmus, pale and blinding, the pines silent but charged with unease. Alexei sat in the outpost infirmary, his hands trembling, his tea untouched. His greatcoat was torn, jagged ribs at the legs, no source in the snow. His skin bore frostbite marks, faint but raw, despite his gear's insulation. Yuri, shaken, admitted hearing coughs during his patrols, his bravado gone. Irina, the quiet private, clutched an icon, whispering about her babushka's tales of winter war ghosts. Dmitri, the cocky corporal, scoffed but avoided the marsh, his hands shaking. Kuznetsov demanded a report, his sternness hiding fear. No ghosts, Volkov. Righted as exposure, but his eyes avoided the bunker's direction. Alexei searched the marsh at first light, his AK-47 slung, his heart pounding. The snow was unmarked, no tracks, no bayonet, only the Sestra's endless crack, now sinister. Like a laugh, he found his bullets embedded in a pine, their tips frozen, coated with a film like ash dot. The fisherman's tale echoed, his warning of Tavarish, stay a weight he couldn't shake. His squad grew quiet, their patrols doubled, their flashlights brighter, avoiding the ruined bunker. Alexei's loyalty, once a duty, wavered. He slept fitfully. The scream echoing stayed, the comrade's voids haunting his dreams, visions of trenches. Frozen bodies, his own face among the dead. Accusing him of shame, his Soviet pride felt tainted. The isthmus a wound he'd reopen, his coat. Repaired, still bore faint rips like scars, a reminder of the hands that clawed him. Alexei deserted a week later, unable to face the marsh. He slipped away during a supply run. Boarding a train to Moscow, his papers forged, his heart pounding. Kuznetsov's report listed him as a WOL, his sternness hiding relief. Yuri sent a letter, the pines stretching endless. The ice glinting like eyes, his radio abandoned, crackled once in his bag, whispering Tavarish, stay. He didn't look back, afraid of what he'd see. In Moscow, he hid in the city's underbelly, taking odd jobs, avoiding military talk. But the isthmus clung to him, a shadow that darkened his days. He couldn't sleep without hearing the cough, couldn't cross snow without feeling those frost-bitten hands. His dreams were haunted by the soldier, their voids staring, their dirge echoing. Alexei stopped praying, fearing the icon's silence would summon the scream. He kept his knife locked away, its way to curse and burn his journal, hoping to sever the link. Sometimes, at night, he heard cough sweat guttural in his apartment's corners. He never looked, afraid of what he'd see. But the soldier's voids lingered, a stain that wouldn't fade. 2 years later, Irina sent Alexei a photo from a patrol, the Sestra's ice in the background. In one corner, a faint, blurry shape stood, a gutted soldier, bayonet raised, surrounded by crawling forms. The photo was streaked with frost, as if pulled from the marsh. Alexei burned it, his hands trembling, but the cough lingered, a reminder that the Karelian isthmus's dead were never truly gone. In the autumn of 1967, the Carpathian Mountains, straddling the Poland-Ukraine border, were a realm of primal beauty and Cold War tension, dense forests of pine and beech, cloaked in mist, yet ancient ridges scarred by centuries of conflict-polished Lithuanian Commonwealth against Cossack, uprisings, Ottoman incursions, and later Soviet domination. The Iron Curtain's edge, marked by barbed wire and watchtowers, was patrolled by the Polish border guard, their vigilance a bulwark against Soviet scrutiny. Villagers whispered of a headless Cossack, horseman beheaded in a 1648 raid, riding the ridges for souls, his saber dripping blood, his wail a curse that woke the dead. Into this haunted frontier stepped Lieutenant Marek Nowak, a 30-year-old Polish border guard officer stationed at a remote outpost near Przemysl, a devout Catholic from Krakow. Marek was shaped by faith and duty, his life a testament to Poland's resilience against oppression. Assigned to a night patrol during a tense Soviet border exercise, Marek was about to confront a past that refused to rest. Marek's journey to the Carpathians was a call to serve. He drove from Krakow in a military jeep, the September rain drumming on the canvas, the mountains looming gray and wet. Przemysl outpost, a cluster of concrete bunkers and wooden barracks, was a Cold War nerve center, its border guard tasked with patrolling the Iron Curtain's edge to deter smugglers, defectors, and Soviet spies. Marek's assignment was a routine night patrol, trek a 10-mile ridge, check watchtowers, report anomalies. The mission suited him, his faith rooted in his mother's rosary, and his pride in Poland's history drove him to protect its borders. His briefing in a damp command room was led by Major Stefan Cowell, a grizzled veteran of the Home Army. He outlined the route, follow the Bister Ridge, monitor Soviet patrols, avoid civilian shepherds, and ignore the village tales. He grunted, but his eyes lingered on the map where a red X marked a ruined Cossack camp. Marek nodded, his SKS rifle slung, his greatcoat heavy with gear flashlight, radio rosary. The guard's whispers tales of a headless rider, his wail summoning warriors stirred unease. But Marek's faith dismissed them as pagan superstition. That first day, Marek settled into the outpost, his boots crunching on gravel, his breath fogging in the chill. The Carpathians, with their misty forests and jagged peaks, felt alive. Their silence a challenge he met with prayer. His grandmother's stories of Upir and cursed souls crept into his mind, a warning he dismissed as nerves. His duty to Poland forged in Krakow's churches anchored him, but the ridge's isolation gnawed, its shadows too sharp, its mist too heavy. First week was a grind of cold and vigilance. Marek patrolled with Sergeant Janusz Wojcik, wary Varsovian with a knack for spotting tracks. They trekked the ridge by day, their SKS rifles slung, their flashlights sweeping trails and clearings. The forest was a maze of pine and fog, the wind moaning, the ridge's ruins crumbled watchtowers. Cossack graves, stark reminders of old wars. They found signs of smugglers' cigarette butts, a torn sack, but no encounters. The patrol a test of endurance more than combat. The ruined camp, a cluster of mossy stones, was their checkpoint, its air heavy with decay. Of duty, Marek visited a village tavern in Ustrzycki Dol, the locals' faces weathered, their stories darker, overworried. An old shepherd spoke of the horseman a Cossack beheaded by Polish Szlachta in 1648 during Khmelnytsky's uprising, cursed to ride for souls. He wails in Ruthenian, the shepherd said, his eyes distant, cruiser crew blood for blood. Brake noted the tale in his log, his Catholic rationality peaked, but his stomach twisted. The shepherd's words echoing his grandmother's warnings of spirits bound to slaughter. The tavern's fire crackled, its warmth failing to chase the chill in his bones. By the second week, Marek was assigned a solo patrol, a test of his leadership. Janusz, on rest, left him with a grin. Don't ride with Cossacks, sir. The other guards cowl. A quiet private named Sofia and a cocky corporal named Pyotr watched him go, their banter laced with unease. Marek's route took him deeper into the ridge, the forest a wall of mist, the air colder. The autumn's bite sharpening, but the Carpathians felt alive, their silence a predator waiting to strike. On the night of September 25, 1967, a dense fog rolled in from the Ukraine, blanketing the ridge. Pines barely visible, Marek's patrol began at 10 p.m. His SKS slung, his flashlight cutting through the mist, his radio crackling with static. He followed a narrow trail along the ridge, his boots sinking into mud, the air damp with the scent of pine and wet earth. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the wind's moan and the distant howl of a wolf. His rosary tucked in his pocket was a quiet comfort, its beads warm against the cold. Ruined camp, his checkpoint loomed ahead, its stones shrouded, its air heavy with rot. Garrick checked his radio, calling in Novak, checkpoint 4, all clear. The static roared. His squad's voices faint, drowned by a low rhythmic thud hooves galloping through the fog. His pulse quickened, his flashlight sweeping the trail, its beam swallowed by the mist. The hooves grew louder, a thunderous charge vibrating through the earth, shaking his boots. His radio screamed, the static now a Slavic curse cruiser crew, not Cal, not his team. Marek called out, "This is Border Guard." "Identify yourself." His voice echoed unanswered, but the hooves intensified, a relentless storm pressing against his chest. Marek backed against a pine, his SKS raised, his flashlight trembling, the forest darkened. The fog a choking shroud, the wind moaning like a dirge. The hooves became a thunder. Each thud a stab in his skull, the ground quaking, mist swirling like a vortex. Through the fog, a figure emerged, tall, broad, on a black stallion snorting fire. A Cossack in tattered Cherkesska, its shoulders ending in a jagged, glistening stump. The rider was headless, its hands clutching a saber dripping blood, its stallion's eyes glowing red, its hooves pounding without touching the earth. Marek's breath caught, his rosary burning through his pocket, his voice a whisper, Matko Bolska. The rider's stump seemed to stare, a void that drew his gaze, filling him with dread, a low, guttural wail rose not from a mouth, but from the air itself, vibrating through the pines, chanting, "Crew's the crew." Shadows rose from the fog warriors, their faces flayed, their eyes voids. Their Cossack coats tattered, crawling on bloody limbs, they chanted, "Blood for blood, join us." Their voices a grinding, dirge accusing, "You forgot us." The mist thickened, forming shapes, hands. Faces their voids hollow, their mouths open in silent screams. Marek's legs trembled, his SKS useless, its barrel trembling. The trees swayed, their branches clawing, the ridge's surface rippling as if alive. Cold, leathery hands skeletal, dripping with blood pulled at his greatcoat, their touch burning like frostbite, tugging him toward the rider. His radio screamed, the static now a Ruthenian cacophony drowning his squad's calls. His mind flooded with visions 1648 massacres, Polish sabers, Cossack villages burned. Their screams soaking the ridges, the visions weren't his, but they felt real, as if the Carpathians were forcing him to see their pain. He felt a jolt, as if his soul was being peeled open, his guilt for Poland's bloody borders, his doubt in his faith's power, his own safety while the dead lingered. The rider glided closer, its saber inches from his face, its void searing into his soul, demanding, "Join us." The warriors crawled, their sabers raised, their dirge a knife in his skull. Marek's scream caught in his throat, his body paralyzed by a terror he'd never known, not in training, not in Krakow's darkest alleys, not anywhere. Marek's faith snapped him free, a flicker of prayer breaking the spell. He fired his SKS 3 shots, the muzzle flash blinding, the bullets passing through the rider, embedding in a pine. The figure didn't falter, its wail unrelenting, the hands tightening, their grip searing his skin. His radio screamed, "Cruiser crew," drowning his cries for help. He stumbled back, wrenching free, his boots slipping in the mud, and ran, the fog chasing him, the hooves thunder pounding his back. He sprinted along the ridge, the pines a black wall, the trail's mud sucking at his boots. The wind howling like a demon, the dirge followed, a relentless chant. The warriors crawled closing in, the mist hands clawing at his coat. He glanced back, his heart stopping. The rider charged, its stump glistening, its saber raised. The warrior's void staring through the fog, the trees creaked, branches snapping, hands frosting his coat, leaving streaks of blood. Marek prayed aloud. Wojcinash, his polish raw, but the wail drowned his words, its Ruthenian cadence a curse. The watchtower's light, faint through the fog, signaled his squad's position. Janusz's voice crackled through the radio, faint but sharp. "Novak, where are you?" The light jolted Marek, and he ran toward it, the pines fading, the ridge a black sea. The hooves faltered, the hands retreating, but the wail lingered, a grinding echo. He reached the tower, collapsing in the mud, his SKS clattering, his breath ragged. Janusz, Sophia, and Pieter leapt from a jeep, their faces pale, their rifles raised, scanning the fog. Dawn broke over the Carpathians, pale and gray, the pines silent but charged with unease. Marek sat in the outpost mess, his hands trembling, his tea untouched. His greatcoat was slashed jagged tears at the chest. No source in the mud, his skin bore frostbite marks, faint but raw. Despite his gear's warmth, Janusz, shaken, admitted hearing hosts during his patrols. His grin gone. Sophia, the quiet private, clutched across, whispering about her Babsia's tales of caustic ghosts. Pieter, the cocky corporal, scoffed but avoided the ridge, his hands shaking. Cowell demanded a report, his gruffness hiding fear. No ghost, no vac. Righted his disorientation, but his eyes avoided the camp's direction. Marek searched the trail at first light, his SKS slung, his heart pounding. The mud was unmarked. No tracks, no saber, only the pine's endless moan, now sinister like a laugh. He found his bullets embedded in a tree, their tips cold, coated with a film like blood. The shepherd's tale echoed, his warning of crews accrue a weight he couldn't shake. His squad grew quiet, their patrols doubled, their flashlights brighter, avoiding the ruined camp. Arek's faith, once a rock, wavered. He prayed nightly, his rosary a lifeline, but the wail echoed, blood for blood, the warrior's voids haunting his dreams, visions of massacres, burning villages, his own face among the dead, accusing him of doubt. His duty to Poland felt tainted, the ridge wound he'd reopened. His coat repaired, still bore faint slashes like scars, a reminder of the hands that pulled him. It requested a transfer a week later, unable to face the ridge. Cowell approved it, his sternness soft as if relieved. Janusz drove him to Przemysl, the pines stretching endless. Mist glinting like eyes, his radio off, crackled once, whispering, "Crew's a crew." He didn't look back, afraid of what he'd see. In Krakow, he tried to resume his life, taking a teaching job, avoiding border talk. But the Carpathians clung to him, a shadow that darkened his days. He couldn't sleep without hearing the hooves, couldn't cross forests without feeling those leathery hands. His dreams were haunted by the rider, their voids staring, their dirge echoing, "Join us." Marek stopped attending Mass, fearing the church's silence would summon the wail. He kept his SKS manual locked away, its way to curse and burn his patrol log, hoping to sever the link. Sometimes at night he heard hooves thundering, fiery in his flat's corners. He never looked, afraid of what he'd see, but the rider's stump lingered, a stain that wouldn't fade. 3 years later, Sophia sent Marek a photo from a patrol, the ridge's pines in the background. In one corner, a faint, blurry shape stood, a headless rider, saber raised, surrounded by flayed forms. The photo was streaked with frost, as if touched by the fog. Marek burned it, his hands trembling, but the wail lingered, a reminder that the Carpathians dead were never truly gone. In April 2003, Baghdad was a city of rubble and grief, its skyline fractured by the US-led invasion that toppled Saddam Hussein's regime. Bombed-out buildings, once vibrant with life, stood as tombs, their air thick with ash and the echoes of civilian suffering. The streets, patrolled by American tanks, buzzed with looters and survivors, while whispers of a lantern ghost, a spectral figure guiding trespassers to death, haunted the ruins. Born from the Gulf War's devastation in 1991 and fueled by the new conflict's chaos, the ghost was said to roam sacred spaces, its light a lure for the living. Shattered City stepped Amina al-Sheikh, a 36-year-old Iraqi journalist for The Independent. Baghdadi native, Amina was driven by a fierce commitment to document her people's pain, her resolve forged by the loss of her father in the 1991 Gulf War. Assigned to cover the invasion's human toll, she ventured into a ruined mosque, unaware that she was about to confront a past that refused to rest. Amina's journey to the mosque was a mission of truth. She arrived in Baghdad from London, where she'd worked as a foreign correspondent, landing in a city she barely recognized. The invasion, launched in March 2003, had left Baghdad's neighborhoods Al-Qarq, Al-Mansur, Al-Jadriya scarred. By airstrikes and looting, Amina's assignment was to interview civilians, capturing stories of loss for The Independent. Her editor, a gruff Brit named Harris, urged her to focus on the human angle. But Amina's drive was personal. Her father, a doctor killed in a 1991 bombing, had taught her to bear witness. Her base was a cramped apartment in Alcarc, its windows taped against blasts, its walls vibrating with distant explosions. She carried a notebook, a digital recorder, and a flashlight. Her breast badge a fragile shield. The city's chaos tested her checkpoints, curfews. Constant crack of gunfire, but her Sunni Muslim faith, rooted in her mother's prayers, anchored her. Locals' tales shared over tea haunted her, a lantern ghost seen in mosques and hospitals, leading looters to their doom. Amina dismissed them as war's hysteria, but the stories lingered, stirring memories of her father's warnings about jinn and restless souls. Her first week was a blur of interviews, mothers mourning children, shopkeepers salvaging wares, elders cursing invaders. She navigated rubble-strewn streets, her boots crunching glass, her recorder capturing grief. Her translator, Khalid, a weary university student, warned her of the ghost. It's a woman. Burned in 91, her lantern traps you. Amina scoffed, her journalist's skepticism sharp. But the city's silence, broken by wails and blasts, felt alive, its shadows too deep, its ash too heavy. The second week deepened Amina's resolve. She ventured into Al Mansur, a once wealthy district now a maze of craters and gutted homes. With Khalid, she interviewed a baker whose shop was looted, a nurse who lost her hospital to bombs, and a boy orphaned by a missile. Their stories, raw and unfiltered, fueled her articles, but the weight of their pain pressed on her chest. Off duty, she visited a cafe in Al Jadriya, its patrons hushed, their eyes scanning for danger. Over Kawa, an old imam spoke of the lantern ghost, a woman killed in a Gulf War airstrike. Her child burned with her, now seeking souls in sacred ruins. She whispers, "Follow," he said, his voice low. "Don't go to the mosques." Amina noted the tale in her journal, her curiosity piqued. But her grief for her father killed in a hospital strike clashed with her rationality. Cafe's radio played a mournful maqam, its notes echoing Baghdad's loss. Her pride in her work, a tribute to her father, felt heavier, a duty tied to a city she couldn't save. Khalid, sensing her unease, urged her to avoid ruined sites, but Amina's mission drove her deeper, her flashlight a beacon in the dark. By the third week, Amina was assigned a solo investigation, a test of her independence. Harris wanted a feature on Baghdad's sacred spaces, mosques, and shrines now desecrated by war. Khalid, on another job, left her with a warning: stay out of the ruins. Her colleagues Farid, a grizzled photographer, and Noor, a young reporter, watched her go, their banter laced with fear. Amina's target was the Al-Nur Mosque in Alcarc, a 12th century relic bomb in the invasion's opening days. Its minaret collapsed, its halls silent but for whispers of the lantern ghost. On the night of April 20th, 2003, a thick fog of ash and dust cloaked Baghdad, the air heavy with the scent of smoke and decay. Amina's investigation began at dusk, her flashlight cutting through the gloom, her recorder clipped to her belt. She navigated Alcarc's ruins, her boots crunching rubble, the distant hum of tanks a constant drone. The Al-Nur Mosque loomed ahead, its dome cracked, its walls scarred by shrapnel, its courtyard a graveyard of tiles and ash. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the wind's moan and the faint drip of water from a shattered fountain. Amina stepped inside, her flashlight sweeping the hall, its beam catching faded mosaics and toppled columns. Her recorder ran, capturing her notes. Al-Nur, April 20th, structural damage severe. The air was thick, the ash coating her throat, the mosque's sanctity violated by war. Her mother's prayers, whispered in childhood, echoed in her mind, a shield against the dark. The imam's tale gnawed at her, the lantern ghost, a woman burned, her light a trap. Just stories, she muttered, but the hall's shadows shifted as if watching. She heard it then, a faint whisper in Arabic. Ibani, follow. Her pulse quickened, her flashlight sweeping the hall, its beam catching nothing but dust. The whisper grew louder, layered with voices, a chorus of grief vibrating through the walls. Her recorder crackled, capturing the words, though the mosque was deserted. Flicker caught her eye, a glowing lantern floating alone, its light cold and flickering, swaying above the altar. Amina called out, "Who's there?" "I'm Press," her voice echoed, unanswered, but the lantern flared, its glow pulsing like a heartbeat. Amina backed against a column, her flashlight trembling, her recorder humming. The mosque darkened, the ash thicker, the wind moaning like a dirge. The lantern flared brighter, revealing a woman in a charred abaya, her face a burned mask, her eyes voids dripping with ash, holding the light in skeletal hands. Her glide was silent, predatory, her abaya trailing smoke, her presence filling the hall with dread. The low, guttural wail rose not from a mouth, but from the air itself, vibrating through the rubble, whispering, Idbani. Amina's breath caught, her mother's prayers faltering, her voice a whisper, Allahu Akbar. The woman's void seemed to stare, pits that drew her gaze, filling her with terror. Shadows rose from the floor, specters, civilians, their bodies broken by bombs, their faces melted, their eyes accusing. They whispered, You let us die. Join us, their voices a howling storm, layered with screams of men, women, children, the fog of ash thickened, forming shapes, hands. Faces their voids hollow, their mouths open in silent shrieks. Amina's legs trembled, her flashlight dead, the air plunging to freezing, her breath fogging despite the desert heat, the floor cracked, the tiles splitting, the rubble pulling at her boots like hands, cold, scorched hands skeletal, dripping with ash grazed her face, their touch burning without heat, tugging her toward the woman. Her recorder screamed, the static now a cacophony of Arabic wails, drowning her cries. Her mind flooded with visions, 1991 airstrikes, hospitals collapsing. Her father's body under rubble, civilians burned alive. The visions weren't hers, but they felt real, as if the mosque was forcing her to see its pain. She felt a jolt, as if her soul was being peeled open, her guilt for surviving, her shame for documenting pain without stopping it, her own life while others perished. The woman glided closer, a lantern inches from Amina's face, its glow casting her shadow as a corpse, its voids demanding. Help! The specters crowded, their broken hands raised, their wail a knife in her skull. Amina's scream caught in her throat, her body paralyzed by a terror she'd never known, not in war zones, not in Baghdad's darkest nights, not anywhere. Amina's instinct snapped her free, a flicker of survival breaking the spell. She stumbled back, wrenching free, her boots slipping on rubble, and ran, the fog of ash chasing her, the lantern's glow burning her back. She sprinted through the hall, the columns a blur, the specters wail a deafening storm. The woman's glide followed, her lantern pulsing, the civilians' hands clawing at her coat, their touch frosting her skin. Amina glanced back, her heart stopping. The woman hovered, her burned mask grinning, her light casting shadows that writhed like corpses. The mosque's exit lone, its archway a faint beacon. Amina prayed aloud, Ya Allah, save me. Her Arabic raw, but the wail drowned her words, its voices a curse. The floor trembled, hands rising from the rubble, their grip searing her legs. A distant Humvee's horn, American troops on patrol, pierced the fog, jolting her. She burst into the courtyard, collapsing in the ash, her recorder clattering, her breath ragged. The lantern's glow lingered at the mosque's edge, its light fading, but the wail echoed a howling promise. Dawn broke over Baghdad, pale and hazy, the ruins silent but charged with unease. Amina sat in her apartment, her hands trembling, her coffee untouched. Her coat was torn, jagged ribs at the sleeves, no source in the rubble. Her face bore faint burn marks, raw but cold despite no flames. Khalid, shaken, listened to her story, his eyes wide, admitting he'd heard whispers in other ruins. Farid, the photographer, checked her recorder, finding the Arabic wails unexplainable. Noor, the young reporter, prayed silently, whispering about her aunt's tales of Gulf War ghosts. Harris demanded a report, his gruffness hiding unease. No ghosts, Amina. Righted his stress, but his eyes avoided her recorder. Amina returned to the mosque at first light, her flashlight trembling, her heart pounding. The rubble was unmarked, no tracks, no lantern, only the ash's endless drift, now sinister. Like a laugh, her recorder replayed, captured the wails, but the tape hissed as if resisting. The imam's tale echoed his warning of follow, a weight she couldn't shake. Her colleagues grew quiet, their assignments avoiding sacred ruins. Their flashlights brighter, Amina's duty, once afire, wavered. She slept fitfully, the wail echoing, You let us die. The specter's voids haunting her dreams, visions of bombings, burned bodies. Her own face among the dead, accusing her of survival. Her faith, once a rock, felt tainted. The mosque wound. She'd reopened, her coat repaired, still bore faint rips like scars, a reminder of the hands that grazed her. Amina quit journalism a week later, unable to face the ruins. Harris approved her leave. his sternness soft as if relieved. Khaled drove her to the airport, the city's rubble stretching endless. The mosques glinting like eyes, her recorder off hissed once, whispering, "Ibani." She didn't look back, afraid of what she'd see. In London, she tried to resume her life, taking a teaching job, avoiding war talk. But Baghdad clung to her, a shadow that darkened her days. She couldn't sleep without hearing the wail, couldn't cross dark rooms without seeing the lanterns glow. Her dreams were haunted by the woman, their voids staring, their wail echoing, "Come her." Amina stopped praying, fearing the silence would summon the wail. She kept her recorder locked away, its way to curse and burn her notes, hoping to sever the link. Sometimes, at night, she saw lanterns glowing, flickering in her flat's corners. She never looked, afraid of what she'd see, but the woman's burned mask lingered, a stain that wouldn't fade. A year later, Fard sent Amina a photo from Baghdad, the Al-Nur Mosque in the background. In one corner, a faint, blurry shape stood, a burned woman, lantern raised, surrounded by broken forms. The photo was streaked with ash as if dredged from the ruins. Amina burned it, her hands trembling, but the wail lingered, a reminder that Baghdad's dead were never truly gone. In the autumn of 1974, the Black Forest, straddling the Germany-France border along the Rhine, was a realm of shadows and Cold War vigilance. Its dense pines and fog-choked trails, steeped in centuries of conflict, bore scars from the Napoleonic Wars, when French and German forces clashed in blood and cannon fire. The West German Bundesgrenzschutz Federal Border Guard, patrolling this tense frontier, faced not only East German espionage but also the forest's grim legends. Villagers, Bavarian farmers, and Rhine fishermen whispered of a Napoleonic piper, blown apart by cannon fire in 1813, his mournful flute luring souls to the river's depths, his music a curse that woke the dead. Gothic labyrinth stepped Officer Hans Keller, a 32-year-old Bundesgrenzschutz officer stationed at a Freiburg outpost, a pragmatic Berliner. Hans was shaped by discipline and skepticism, his life a rejection of superstition, assigned to a night patrol during a NATO exercise. Hans was about to confront a past that refused to rest. Hans' journey to the Black Forest was a return to duty. He drove from Berlin in a military jeep, the October rain lashing the windshield, the forest peaks looming dark and wet. The Freiburg outpost, a cluster of concrete bunkers and wooden barracks, was a Cold War nerve center, its border guards tasked with patrolling the Rhine's edge to deter smugglers, defectors, and East German spies. Hans' assignment was a routine night patrol, trek a 12-kilometer trail along the Rhine, check observation posts, and report anomalies. The mission suited him, his Berlin grit, honed in a city divided. By the wall made him a model officer, his Walther P-38 a trusted companion. His briefing in a damp command room was led by Major Klaus Weber, a grizzled Hessian with a limp from a 1960s border skirmish. He outlined the route, follow the Schwarzwald Trail, inspect derelict watchtowers, avoid civilian poachers, and ignore the fairy tales. He grunted, but his eyes lingered on the map, where a red X marked a ruined Napoleonic fort. Hans nodded, his P-38 holstered, his greatcoat heavy with gear, flashlight, radio, knife. The guards whispered tales of a piper, his flute summoning grenadiers stirred unease. Hans' rationality, forged in Berlin's concrete jungle, dismissed them as rural nonsense. Their first day, Hans settled into the outpost, his boots crunching on gravel, his breath fogging in the chill. The Black Forest, with its towering pines and misty trails, felt alive, its silence a challenge he met with discipline. His father's stories of Erlknig and forest spirits from Grimm's tales crept into his mind. A warning he dismissed as childish, his duty to the Bundesrepublik, a shield against the East, anchored him, but the forest shadows gnawed, its fog too thick, its silence too deep. First week was a grind of cold and vigilance. Hans patrolled with Sergeant Fritz Muller, a jovial Swabian with a knack for tracking. They trekked the Schwarzwald by day, their P-38s holstered, their flashlights sweeping trails and clearings. The Rhine, a silver ribbon, was their guide, its waters murmuring, its banks a maze of roots and mist. They checked watchtowers, crumbling relics of the 19th century, their stones scarred by musket. Fire finding no threats, only the wind's moan and the occasional deer track. The ruined fort, a mossy heap half swallowed by pines, Hans was their checkpoint, its air heavy with decay. Of duty, Hans visited a tavern in Baden-Baden. The locals' faces weathered, their stories darker. Over Schwartz beer, an old forester spoke of the piper, a French musician blown apart by Prussian cannon in 1813. During Napoleon's retreat, cursed to play for souls, he plays a flute high and sad. The forester said, his eyes distant, sings Marsch avec nous, walk with us. Hans noted the tale in his log, his skepticism sharp, but his stomach twisted. The forester's words echoing his father's warnings of spirits bound to war. The tavern's fire crackled, its warmth failing to chase the chill in his bones. By the second week, Hans was assigned a solo patrol, a test of his leadership. Fritz, on rest, left him with a grin. Don't dance to flutes, Berliner. The other guards, Weber. A quiet private named Anna and a cocky corporal named Rolf watched him go, their banter laced with unease. Hans' route took him deeper into the forest. The Rhines murmur his path, the fog a wall of gray. The air was colder, the autumn's bite sharpening, but the black forest felt alive, its silence a predator waiting to strike. On the night of October 28, 1974, a dense fog rolled in from the Rhine, blanketing the forest. Pines barely visible. Hans' patrol began at 10 p.m., his P-38 holstered, his flashlight cutting through the mist, his radio crackling with static. He followed the Schwarzwald, his boots sinking into mud, the air damp with the scent of pine and wet earth. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the Rhine's murmur and the distant hoot of an owl. His knife, tucked in his belt, was a quiet comfort, its weight grounding him against the dark. Ruined fort, his checkpoint, loomed ahead, its stones shrouded, its air heavy with rot. Hans checked his radio, calling in Keller, post for all clear. The static roared, his squad's voices faint, drowned by a high, mournful flute, its melody weaving through the fog. His pulse quickened, his flashlight sweeping the trail, its beam swallowed by the mist. Flute grew louder, a piercing wail, vibrating through the pines, shaking his boots. His radio screamed, the static now a French curse, Marsch avec nous, not Weber, not his team. Hans called out, this is Bundesgrenzschutz. Identify yourself. His voice echoed, unanswered, but the flute intensified, a relentless cry that pressed against his skull. Hans backed against a pine, his P-38 drawn, his flashlight trembling. The forest darkened, the fog a choking labyrinth, the Rhine's murmur sinister. The flute became a scream, each note a stab in his ears, the ground quaking, fog swirling like a vortex. Through the mist, a figure emerged, tall, gaunt, in a tattered shako and French uniform. Its fabric shredded, its face a bloody ruin, half blown away, exposing bone and sinew. Figure played a splintered flute, its fingers skeletal, its tune a howling dirge that shook the trees. Hans' breath caught, his discipline crumbling, his voice a whisper, Gott im Himmel. Piper's ruin seemed to stare, a void that drew his gaze, filling him with dread. A low, guttural chant rose, not from a mouth but from the air itself, vibrating through the forest, chanting, Marsch avec nous. Shadows rose from the fog grenadiers, their faces frost-bitten, their eyes voids, their Napoleonic coats tattered, clutching bayonets that glinted with a crimson sheen. They chanted, walk with us, join us, their voices a grinding dirge, accusing you forgot us. The fog, thickened, forming shapes, hands, faces, their voids hollow, their mouths open in silent screams. Hans' legs trembled, his P-38 useless, its barrel trembling. The trees creaked, their roots dripping his boots, the forest surface rippling as if alive, cold, bloodied hands skeletal, dripping with gore pulled at his jacket, their touch burning like frostbite, tugging him toward the Rhine. His radio screamed, the static now a French cacophony, maudid, fiends drowning his squad's calls. His mind flooded with visions, 1813 battles, cannon fire, French soldiers gutted on the Rhine. Their screams swallowed by fog. The visions weren't his, but they felt real, as if the forest was forcing him to see its pain. He felt a jolt, as if his soul was being peeled open, his guilt for Germany's wars, his fear of failing his duty, his own life while the dead marched. Piper glided closer, its flute inches from his face, its ruin searing into his soul. Demanding, join us, the grenadiers advanced, their bayonets raised, their dirge a knife in his skull. Hans' scream caught in his throat, his body paralyzed by a terror he'd never known, not in Berlin's riots, not in training, not anywhere. Hans' instinct snapped him free, a flicker of survival breaking the spell. He fired his P-38 3 shots, the muzzle flash blinding, the bullets passing through the Piper, embedding in a pine. The figure didn't falter, it screamed unrelenting, the hands tightening, their grip searing his skin. His radio screamed Marshalik news. Drowning his cries for help, he stumbled back, wrenching free, his boots slipping in the mud, and ran, the fog chasing him, the flute's wail piercing his ears. He sprinted along the trail. Behind a black wall, the Rhines murmur a taunt, the wind howling like a banshee. The dirge followed, a relentless chant, the grenadiers' march closing in. The fog's hands clawing at his jacket, he glanced back. His heart stopping, the Piper stood in the mist, its rowan grinning, its flute raised, the grenadier's void staring through the fog. The trees swayed, roots snapping, hands frosting his jacket, leaving streaks of blood. Hans prayed aloud, Vader Unser, his German raw, but the scream drowned his words. Its French curse is a curse. A watchtower's light, faint through the fog, signaled his squad's position. Fritz's voice crackled through the radio, faint but sharp. Keller, where are you? The light jolted Hans, and he ran toward it, the pines fading, the trail a black sea. Flute faltered, the hands retreating, but the scream lingered, a piercing echo. He reached the tower, collapsing in the mud, his P-38 clattering, his breath ragged. Fritz, Anna. Rolf leapt from a jeep, their faces pale, their rifles raised, scanning the fog. Dawn broke over the black forest, pale and gray, the pines silent but charged with unease. Hans sat in the outpost mess, his hands trembling, his coffee untouched. His jacket was torn, jagged tears. At the chest, no source in the mud, his skin bore frostbite marks, faint but raw, despite the autumn chill. Fritz, shaken, admitted hearing flutes during his patrols, his humor gone. Anna, the quiet private, clutched across, whispering about her almost tales of Napoleonic ghosts. Rolf, the cocky corporal, scoffed but avoided the trail, his hands shaking. Weber demanded a report, his gruffness hiding fear. No ghosts. Keller righted his disorientation, but his eyes avoided the fort's direction. Hans searched the trail at first light, his P-38 holstered, his heart pounding. The mud was unmarked. No tracks, no flute, only the Rhine's endless murmur, now sinister like a laugh. He found his bullets embedded in a tree, their tips cold, coated with a film like blood. Forrester's tale echoed, his warning of Marshalik news a weight he couldn't shake. His squad grew quiet, their patrols doubled, their flashlights brighter, avoiding the ruined fort. Hans' rationality, once a rock, wavered. He slept fitfully. The scream echoing, walk with us, the grenadier's voids haunting his dreams, visions of battles. Cannon fire, his own face among the dead, accusing him of fear. His duty to the Bundish Republic felt tainted. The forest a wound he'd reopened, his jacket repaired, still bore faint tears like scars. A reminder of the hands that pulled him. Hans resigned a week later, unable to face the forest. Weber approved it, his sternness soft. As if relieved, Fritz drove him to Freiburg, the pines stretching endless, the Rhine glinting like eyes. His radio off, crackled once, whispering Marshalik news. He didn't look back, afraid of what he'd see. In Berlin, he tried to resume his life, taking a factory job, avoiding border talk. But the black forest clung to him, a shadow that darkened his days. He couldn't sleep without hearing the flute, couldn't cross parks without feeling those bloodied hands. His dreams were haunted by the Piper, their voids staring, their dirge echoing, join us. Hans stopped hiking, fearing the forest pull, and kept his P-38 locked away, its weight a curse. He burned his patrol log, hoping to sever the link, but the scream persisted, faint but clear, a reminder that some trails were never truly left. Sometimes, at night, he heard flutes high, mournful in his flats corners. He never looked, afraid of what he'd see, but the Piper's ruin lingered, a stain that wouldn't fade. 2 years later, Anna sent Hans a photo from a patrol, the Rhine's banks in the background. In one corner, a faint, blurry shape stood, a Piper, flute raised, surrounded by grenadiers. The photo was streaked with frost, as if touched by the fog. Hans burned it, his hands trembling. But the flute lingered, a reminder that the Black Forest dead were never truly gone. In the winter of 1994, the U.S.-Canada border near the Yukon, a remote stretch of Alaska's demilitarized ice zone DMZ was a land of unrelenting cold and primal silence. Pine forests, choked with snow, stretched endlessly, their branches heavy, their shadows hiding secrets from the Klondike gold rush of 1898, when prospectors and soldiers braved blizzards for gold, many never returning. Border, marked by sparse outposts and barbed wire, was patrolled by U.S. Army Rangers, their missions a test of endurance against nature and isolation. Local Zenut elders, trappers, outpost keepers whispered of a century, a soldier frozen in an 1898 storm, his ghost guarding a lost outpost, his whistle calling the dead. Into this frozen tomb stepped Sergeant Caleb Holt, 38-year-old U.S. Army Ranger stationed at Fort Greely, Alaska, a grizzled veteran from Montana. Caleb was forged by survivalist grit, his life shaped by the wilderness hunting, tracking, enduring. His ranger training, honed in deserts and jungles, made him a leader. But the Alaskan DMZ tested even his resolve. Assigned to a solo patrol during a NATO exercise, Caleb was about to confront a past that refused to thaw. Caleb's journey to the Alaskan DMZ was a return to the wild. He flew into Fort Greely from Anchorage, the C-130's engines roaring, the January snow swirling outside the base. A cluster of concrete barracks and radar domes was a Cold War relic, its rangers tasked with patrolling the border to monitor Russian activity and test Arctic warfare tactics. Caleb's assignment was part of a NATO exercise, a solo trek through the DMZ, navigating a 20-mile loop near the Yukon border, testing survival and reconnaissance skills. The mission thrilled him. His love for the wilderness, rooted in Montana's mountains, made the Alaskan frontier a proving ground. His briefing in a frost-rimed command room was led by Captain Ellen Marsh, a stern Alaskan native. She outlined the route: follow the Tanana River's edge, check old outposts, avoid civilian trappers, and don't buy the ghost stories, she said, her voice flat. But her eyes lingered on the map, where a red X marked the derelict Klondike-era outpost. Caleb nodded, his M4 carbine slung, his parka heavy with gear, flashlight, radio, survival kit. The soldier's whispers tales of a frozen century, his whistle luring wanderers stirred unease. But Caleb's pragmatism dismissed them as campfire tales. That first day, Caleb prepped his gear, his breath fogging in the sub-zero air, the base's generators humming. The Alaskan wilderness, with its endless snow and pine, felt alive. Its silence a challenge he relished. His father, a Vietnam vet, had taught him to trust the land but fear its secrets. Stories of Wendigos and lost souls echoing in his mind. Caleb's pride in his ranger patch, earned through blood and frost, anchored him. But the DMZ's isolation gnawed, its shadows to deep, its cold to personal. First week was a grind of cold and vigilance. Caleb patrolled with Staff Sergeant Mike Bear Larson, burly Minnesotan with a knack for spotting tracks. They skied the DMZ's trails, their emperor slung, their flashlights sweeping snowdrifts and pines. The Tanana River, frozen solid, was their guide, its ice cracking underfoot, its banks a maze of roots and snow. They checked outposts, rusted shacks from the 1940s, their doors frozen shut, finding no threats. Only the winds howled and the occasional wolf print. The Klondike outpost, a crumbling log cabin, was their final stop, its windows dark, its air heavy with decay. Of duty, Caleb visited a trading post in Tak. The locals' faces weathered, their stories darker. Over coffee, an Inuit elder spoke of the century, a U.S. soldier guarding a gold convoy in 1898. Caught in a blizzard, frozen standing, his whistle still calling his men. He's angry. The elder said, his eyes distant, says, stay warm, but takes your heat. Caleb noted the tale in his log, his survivalist curiosity piqued, but his stomach twisted. The elder's words echoing his father's warnings of spirits bound to the wild. The post radio played a crackling folk tune, its lyrics of loss and cold mirroring the DMZ's pulse. By the second week, Caleb was assigned a solo patrol, a test of his Arctic skills. Bear, on rest, left him with a grin. Don't answer any whistles, man. The other rangers march. A quiet private named Tara and a cocky specialist named Ryan watched him go, their banter laced with unease. Caleb's route took him deeper into the DMZ, the Tanana's ISIS path, the pines a wall of black. The air was colder, the winter's bite lethal, but the wilderness felt alive, its silence a predator waiting to strike. On the night of January 20th, 1994, a blizzard roared in from the Arctic, blanketing the DMZ. Pine swaying, the snow blinding, Caleb's patrol began at 10 p.m. His skis gliding over the Tanana's ice, his infra heavy, his flashlight cutting through the storm. The air was sub-zero, the scent of pine and frost thick, the silence oppressive, broken only by the wind's howl and the ice's crack. His radio crackled with static. Marsh's voice faint. Halt. Checkpoint 2, report status. He responded, his voice steady, but the static grew, laced with a faint, mournful whistle, not from the base, not from anyone alive. Caleb pushed on, his parka crusted with snow, his goggles fogging, the Klondike outpost. His final checkpoint loomed ahead, its logs barely visible, its roof sagging under snow. The blizzard intensified, the wind a living thing screaming through the pines, carrying a chill that pierced his gear. His survival kit with matches and a flare was a quiet comfort, but the elder's tale gnawed at him, the sentry frozen, his whistle a lure, just a storm. He muttered, but the ice's crack deepened like bones snapping, deliberate and alive. He heard it, then a sharp, mournful whistle cutting through the blizzard, rhythmic like a signal. His pulse quickened, his flashlight sweeping the snow, its beam swallowed by the storm. The whistle grew louder, a piercing wail vibrating through the ice. Shaking his skis, his radio roared with static. Now clear with a gravelly voice, "You're late, not Marsh, not his team." Caleb called out, "This is U.S. Army, identify yourself." His voice was lost in the wind, but the whistle intensified, a relentless cry that pressed against his skull. Caleb stopped, his infra raised, his flashlight trembling. The blizzard darkened, the snow a white wall, the Tanana's ice groaning underfoot. The whistle became a scream, each note a stab in his ears, the ground quaking, snow swirling like a vortex. Through the storm, a figure emerged, tall, gaunt, in a tattered greatcoat, a U.S. Army uniform from 1898, its fabric frozen, its edges fraying like ice. The figure's face was a frost-bitten skull, its eye sockets black voids, its jaw gaping, clutching a Springfield rifle, its bayonet glinting with a blue sheen. Caleb's breath caught, his survivalist grit crumbling, his voice a whisper. "Goddamn." The sentry's void seemed to stare, pits that drew his gaze, filling him with dread. A low, guttural moan rose, not from a mouth but from the air itself, vibrating through the ice, moaning, "Stay warm." Shadows crawled from the snow soldiers, their faces blackened by frost, their eyes voids, their uniforms tattered, crawling on frost-bitten limbs. They moaned, "Stay warm, join us." Their voices a grinding dirge, accusing, "You forgot us." The snow thickened, forming shapes, hands, faces, their voids hollow, their mouths open in silent screams. Caleb's legs trembled, his flashlight dead, the air plunging to lethal cold, his breath freezing in his lungs, his mind flooded with visions, Klondike blizzards, soldiers buried in drifts, gold convoys ambushed, their screams swallowed by snow. The visions weren't his, but they felt real, as if the DMZ was forcing him to see its pain. He felt a jolt, as if his soul was being peeled open, his guilt for surviving where others perished, his fear of failing his men, his own warmth while the dead froze. The sentry glided closer, its whistle a deafening scream, the ice cracking, the snow pulling at Caleb's skis like hands, cold, frost-bitten hands, skeletal, dripping with ice clawed at his parka, their touch burning like dry ice, tugging him toward the outpost. The spectral soldiers crawled faster, their voids locking on him, their dirge demanding, "Join us." Caleb's scream caught in his throat, his body paralyzed by a terror he'd never known, not in combat, not in Montana's wilds, not anywhere. The sentry's skull towered, its rifle raised, each whistle a knife in his skull, commanding, "You're late." Caleb's instinct snapped him free, a flicker of survival breaking the spell. He fired his M4 short bursts, the muzzle flash blinding, the bullets vanishing into the storm, leaving no mark on the sentry. The figure didn't falter, its whistle unrelenting, the hands tightening, their grip searing his skin. His radio screamed, "You're late." Drowning his calls for backup, he ripped off his skis, stumbling through the snow, and ran. The blizzard chasing him, the whistle scream piercing his ears. He sprinted toward the Tanana. Pines a black wall, the ice's crack chasing him, the wind howling like a wendigo. The dirge followed, a relentless moan, the crawl of soldiers closing in, The snow's hands clawing at his boots, he glanced back. His heart stopping, the sentry stood on the ice, its skull gaping. Its rifle raised, the soldier's void staring through the storm. The snow swirled, hands frosting his parka, leaving streaks of ice. Caleb fired his flare. Its red glow a beacon, praying aloud, "Get me out," his Montana drawl raw. But the whistle drowned his words, its pitch a curse. Marsh's voice crackled through the radio, faint but sharp. "Hold, signal spotted, hold position." The flashlight revealed a Humvee, distant, its headlights piercing the storm. The distraction jolted Caleb, and he ran toward it, the ice groaning, the hands retreating. But the whistle lingered, a piercing echo. He reached the Humvee, collapsing in the snow, his infra clattering, his breath ragged. Bear, Tara, and Ryan leapt out, their faces pale, their rifles raised, scanning the storm. Dawn broke over the DMZ, pale and blinding, the pines silent but charged with unease. Caleb sat in a base infirmary, his hands trembling, his coffee untouched. His parka was torn, jagged ribs at the chest, no source in the snow. His skin bore frostbite scars, faint but raw, despite his gear's insulation, bare, shaken. Admitted hearing whistles during his patrols, his humor gone. Tara, the quiet private, clutched across, whispering about her Inuit aunt's tales of frozen spirits. Ryan, the cocky specialist, scoffed but avoided the Tanana, his hands shaking. Marsh demanded a report, her sternness hiding fear. No ghosts hold, right at his exposure. But her eyes avoided the outpost direction. Caleb searched the ice at first light, his infra slung, his heart pounding. The snow was unmarked. No tracks, no rifle, only the Tanana's endless crack, now sinister like a laugh. He found his bullets, embedded in a pine, their tips frozen, coated with a film like ash. The elder's tale echoed, his warning of stay warm. A weight he couldn't shake. His squad grew quiet, their patrols doubled, their flashlights brighter, voiding the outpost ruins. Caleb's grit, once a rock, wavered. He slept fitfully, the whistle echoing, "You're late," the soldier's voids haunting his dreams, visions of blizzards. Frozen convoys, his own face among the dead, accusing him of warmth. His ranger pride felt tainted, the DMZA wound he'd reopened, his parka, repaired, still bore faint rips like scars, a reminder of the hands that clawed him. Caleb requested retirement a week later, unable to face the Tanana. Marsh approved it, her sternness soft as if relieved. Bear drove him to Fairbanks, the pines stretching endless, the ice glinting like eyes. His radio off, crackled once, whispering, "You're late." He didn't look back, afraid of what he'd see. In Montana, he tried to resume his life, taking a ranger job, avoiding military talk, but the DMZ clung to him, a shadow that darkened his days. He couldn't sleep without hearing the whistle, couldn't cross snow without feeling those frostbitten hands. His dreams were haunted by the sentry, their void staring, their dirge echoing. Caleb stopped hunting, fearing the wild's pull, and kept his infra locked away, its weight a curse. He burned his patrol log, hoping to sever the link, but the whistle persisted, faint but clear, a reminder that some borders were never truly crossed. Sometimes, at night, he saw shaped skulls, rifles in his cabin's corners. He never looked, afraid of what he'd see, but the sentry's voids lingered, a stain that wouldn't fade. A year later, Tara sent Caleb a photo from a patrol, the Tanana's eyes in the background. In one corner, a faint, blurry shape stood, a skull-faced sentry clutching a rifle surrounded by crawling forms. The photo was streaked with frost as if pulled from the ice. Caleb burned it, his hands trembling, but the whistle lingered, a reminder that the DMZ's dead were never truly gone.